State governments create national park. Central governments create eco-sensitive zone around national park. State governments create national park under WPA 1972, Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Central government creates eco-sensitive zone under Environment Protection Act 1986. The purpose is that the eco-sensitive zone should act like a shock absorber so that the polluting industries or the external impact is diluted till it reaches the actual national park. However, making them as shock absorber is not the sole purpose. Generally, they are made 10 kilometers around the national park or wildlife sanctuary, but that is not a hard and fast rule. Many times, there may be two different national parks at two distant locations, and there may be migration of some animals or birds. In that case, government may declare this area also as a eco-sensitive zone, even if it does not lie within 10-kilometer radius. Also, this 10-kilometer radius is not uniform throughout. In some places it may be less, at some places it may be more than 10 kilometers. So please remember that eco-sensitive zone is created by the central government under EPA 1986. One interesting thing is that the law itself, EPA 1986, does not mention the words eco-sensitive zone. However, the 2002 Strategy on Wildlife Conservation uses a word eco-fragile zone to be created, a fragile zone to be created 10 kilometers around the national parks or wildlife sanctuaries. For your examination purpose, please don't get confused between EFZ and ESZ. Both of them are one and the same thing. Okay, eco-fragile zone or eco-sensitive zone are one and the same thing. One important thing: when a state government creates a national park or wildlife sanctuary, then in future, if the state government wants to change the boundary, it wants to make some modification to the boundary, then it cannot make it by itself. It will need the recommendation of National Board for Wildlife at the central government, which is headed by the Prime Minister of India. Which activities are not allowed in eco-sensitive zone? Commercial mining and polluting industries are not allowed in the eco-sensitive zone because they may have direct impact on the national park or wildlife sanctuary. However, hotels and resorts and other such activities are regulated. For example, hotels may be allowed to open in eco-sensitive zone provided they do not create pollution, they do not throw away the sewage in the open, okay, they do not disturb the environment, and some activities are openly permitted, for example any ongoing agricultural practices. Look at the 2014 question. Eco-sensitive zones are declared under WPA. No, it is a national park or wildlife sanctuary declared under EPA, under the WPA. Okay, the eco-sensitive zone is declared under Environment Protection Act 1986, not WPA 1972. Second statement says, what is the purpose? The purpose is to prohibit all kinds of human activities except agriculture. No, that is not the purpose. The purpose is to prohibit all polluting industries like commercial mining. Okay, hotels and resorts and other such activities are allowed in the eco-sensitive zone. 2016 question. Gadgil Committee and Kasturi Rangan Committee. What are these related to? These are related to the Western Ghats. As I told you that eco-sensitive zones are not exactly 10 kilometers around the protected area. They may be more or less also. Similarly, in Western Ghats, there are many wildlife sanctuaries and national parks. However, government can also, the whole Western Ghat itself is also very eco-fragile or eco-sensitive. Therefore, the 2010 committee of Gadgil, okay, Mr. Gadgil, the Gadgil committee, it recommended that 64% of the Western Ghats should be declared as eco-sensitive zone. 2 years later, Kasturi Rangan committee was formed, which recommended that just 37% of the Western Ghats should be declared eco-sensitive zone. So what is the difference between national park and wildlife sanctuary? The focus of national park is to protect the whole ecology, the whole ecosystem. But the sole purpose of wildlife sanctuary, the main focus of wildlife sanctuary is to protect the wildlife there. Human activity, the external human pressure is not permitted in the national park, but some human activities are allowed in the wildlife sanctuary like grazing of animals. Both of them are notified by the state government. However, once they are created by the state government, then any change in their boundary has to be approved by National Board for Wildlife headed by the Prime Minister of India. India's oldest national park is Haley National Park, formed in 1936, now known as Corbett National Park. India's oldest wildlife sanctuary was notified in 1936, Vedanthangai Lake Bird Sanctuary in Tamil Nadu. Maximum number of national parks are in Madhya Pradesh, 11. Maximum number of wildlife sanctuaries are in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, 96. As I told you earlier, that a national park or a wildlife sanctuary is made by the state government, and to protect it from external influences, on all the corners on the boundary we are creating eco-sensitive zone. But this eco-sensitive zone is created under EPA 1986. This is created under WPA, but the area outside eco-sensitive zone is created under EPA 1986. However, WPA 1972 also has some provisions. It was amended later. Now it also has some provisions to create some area around it. Okay, and what are those provisions called as? They are conservation reserve and community reserve. Just like outside a wildlife sanctuary or a national park, we created eco-sensitive zone. Similarly, if we want, we can also create conservation reserve or community reserve outside the national park or the wildlife sanctuary. In the year 2002, Government of India amended the Wildlife Protection Act 2002. Since then, we have been declaring conservation reserve and community reserve. They also, just like eco-sensitive zone, they also act like a buffer zone or a connection for the migration species. Now, what is the difference between the two if both of them are same? The difference is about the land ownership. Okay, suppose this is one national park, this is another national park, and government has created a conservation reserve between two national parks. Now this conservation reserve, it is a conservation reserve only if all this land in between is owned only by the government. If some portion of this land is also owned by some private people, then in that case it will be called as a community reserve. However, be it conservation reserve or be it community reserve, people can always go there and collect their minor forest produce. They can always use this area for their subsistence use. Okay, not for commercial purpose, but the Adivasis, the people who live there, for their own subsistence, they can use this area. It is also notified by the state government. So basically, all the four types of protected areas under WPA 1972 are notified by the state government, be it national park, wildlife sanctuary, conservation reserve or community reserve. India's first conservation reserve was notified in 2005 and first community reserve was notified in 2007. Maximum number of conservation reserves are in which state? Jammu Kashmir. And maximum community reserves are in Nagaland, 114. Okay, you can learn it like this, that conservation reserve, government owns the land. So in Jammu Kashmir, government owns the land. Okay, in Nagaland, the tribes are very strong, so therefore their private land is there. Right, so you can say that in Nagaland has maximum number of community reserve. That is one way of how you can remember these things. Now, what are marine protected areas? Marine protected areas are not specifically mentioned under WPA 1972. It is simply a protected area. It is simply a protected area that is in the sea. This is India's coast. If government says that in this peninsular India, here this area is a national park, government declares this to be a national park, then it is a national park. If government says that this is sea and in sea, this area in the sea will be a national park, then in that case we will also call this as a marine protected area. Now tell me one thing, when you are on the land, then on this land, either this land is owned by the government or by private people, right? Can the same thing be said about the ocean? No, you cannot say that in the ocean any private person is owning the land. Private person can never own the land in the ocean or sea. Therefore, marine protected area can be a national park, it can be a wildlife sanctuary, or it can be a conservation reserve, but it cannot be a community reserve. We cannot have community reserve in the sea. Okay, but we can have national park, wildlife sanctuary, and conservation reserve in the sea. So like here it is written that India has 982 protected areas and the numbers are given here. That means if you add the first three figures 106 plus 566 plus 997, among the total of this 129 of them are in the sea, and among 129 also 100 are in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Earlier we had 104 national parks, now we have 106 national parks, because recently government of Assam created two new national parks, Dehing Patkai National Park and Raimona National Park. Now what are critical wildlife habitat? So these are the areas within the national park. This is the national park or wildlife sanctuary. Within this, small area will be created which will be called a critical wildlife habitat. It will be very much critical for the wildlife there. Okay, who created this national park? State government. Who created the eco-sensitive zone outside this? Central government. Who will create the critical wildlife habitat inside the national park? That also central government. Okay, but here central government is creating this under FRA 2006, Forest Rights Act 2006. National park created under 1972 Act, WPA. Eco-sensitive zone under EPA 1986, and this critical wildlife habitat under FRA 2006. See, creating a national park or a wildlife sanctuary does not mean that the wildlife has got all the rights and the people living there, the forest dwellers, have no rights. That is not the meaning. Okay, forest dwellers also have some rights. That is explicitly written by the law Forest Rights Act 2006. It recognizes the rights of the forest dwellers. Then Ministry of Tribal Affairs issues the guidelines for those rights, and Gram Sabha initiates the process to give specific rights to the people. Right? So there can be some individual rights, like there is a forest dweller, he wants to cultivate the land for his own consumption. It is not for commercial purpose that he will bring in 50 people from the city and make them work on the field. No, that is not there. Okay, for self cultivation, yes, he has full right. He has full right to live there. So there are some individual rights of the forest dwellers. Similarly, there are some community rights of the forest dwellers, like grazing, fishing, habitat rights, etc. So if UPSC gives you question where 5 types of rights are written and UPSC is asking that which among these are permitted under FRA 2006, then you mark all of them as correct except any option that talks about cruelty against animals. Fine. 2018 question. The definition of critical wildlife habitat in a national park, there is a small critical wildlife habitat declared by the central government. Okay, so the definition of critical wildlife habitat is incorporated in FRA 2006. That's correct. Okay, we said that national park and wildlife sanctuary under 1972, eco sensitive zone 86, 1986 Act. Okay, and this critical wildlife habitat under 2006. Right. For the first time in India, Bagas have been given habitat rights. Yes, Bagas are a PVTG of Madhya Pradesh. They were given the habitat rights in the year 2016 or 2015. Okay. Now about the habitat rights, which ministry will see all this work of habitat rights? Which is the nodal ministry here? Is it Ministry of Environment? No, it is Ministry of Tribal Affairs. See here. Okay, so only options 1 and 2 are correct. You can think it like this, that till now the story was of conflict between the environment and humans. Environment is protected by WPA 1972, EPA 1986 and other laws. And human rights are protected by FRA 2006. So there is a kind of a conflict between the two. Okay. However, Biosphere Reserve is a different approach. Here we try to bring the coordination or synchronization, cooperation between the two. Here we say that in the biosphere, plants, animals, nature, humans, everyone should live in cooperation and coordination. Okay. So in a biosphere reserve, mainly there are three zones. The innermost zone is a core zone. Here preference is given to the environment. Okay, it could be a national park or it could be a wildlife sanctuary. Now around this there will be a buffer zone. Here human activities are allowed like tourism, fishing, grazing, etc. And then there is a transition zone. Transition zone's boundary is generally not demarcated strongly. Okay, transition zone is basically about cooperation. Inside in the core zone and the buffer zone, you are using laws to control human activities. But in the transition zone, you are not strictly using any laws. Okay, you are using the method of cooperation between the man and its environment. So biosphere reserve is about giving due importance to all the elements of the biosphere, including the humans. For your prelims examination, all you need to learn is the name of these 18 biosphere reserves and the states in which they are. For example, in the year 2004, UPSC asked in which state which biosphere reserves are there. In 2005, UPSC asked which of them is not a biosphere reserve. So you should know the names of all of them. In 2008, UPSC asked which of these biosphere reserves have been recognized, which of them has not been recognized by the UNESCO. Okay. So UNESCO has a program called as Man and Biosphere Program. Here UNESCO recognizes the biosphere reserves of different countries. This program was started in 1971. Currently it recognizes 714 biosphere reserves from 129 countries. From India, 12 biosphere reserves have been recognized by UNESCO. Here is a printing error. Okay, it is not 13, it is 12. So from this map, please learn all these names. Okay, the names which are in green, okay, in the green box, these green box names have been recognized by UNESCO. Which is India's biggest biosphere reserve? It is Great Run of Kutch. India's smallest biosphere reserve, Dibru-Saikhowa. India's oldest biosphere reserve is Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, 1986. And latest is Panna Biosphere Reserve, declared in 2011. Kane River passes through Panna Biosphere Reserve. 2010 question. Boundaries of national park are defined by legislation. Yes, absolutely. Under which law? WPA 1972. And who defines them? It is a state government. So first statement is correct. Second statement, Biosphere Reserve is declared to conserve few species. No, Biosphere Reserve is declared to preserve all the species including humans. Second is wrong. Third, Wildlife Sanctuary, limited biotic interference is permitted. Yes, in Wildlife Sanctuary, human activities are permitted. Okay, in National Park they are not permitted. Like in 2012, UPSC asked, in which of them local people are not allowed to collect biomass? In National Park they are not allowed. In Wildlife Sanctuary, yes, they are allowed. Fine. 2011 question. Which of them is not a site for in situ method of conservation for flora? You want to protect some plants. Flora is plants. So plants have been growing in this area for thousands of years. You want to protect them there itself. So you will declare this area either as a national park or a wildlife sanctuary or a biosphere reserve, so that human activities here reduces or becomes zero. Right? However, if you think that you should take out some plants from here and keep them secure in a place, then that place you will call as botanical garden. Like zoo is for animals, similarly botanical garden is for plants. 2014 question. Most important strategy for cooperation between biodiversity and human life. So biodiversity and human life, how do you bring a balance? By creating biosphere reserves. You must have heard in the news that 42nd Ramsar site has been announced. So UPSC will give a statement that India has 42 wetlands and you will mark it as correct. 42. Your focus will be on the figure 42. Wrong. I said 42 wetlands. India does not have 42 wetlands. India has 42 Ramsar sites. Wetland is basically any area which is almost always covered with water, almost always saturated with water. So there can be many areas. It can be a river, your pond, the river bed, the areas surrounding the river. It can be your even the place where rice is grown, where paddy is grown. That is also a wetland. Okay, so wetland are numerous. We are talking about the Ramsar sites. That is, some wetlands has been recognized by the Ramsar Convention. Ramsar Convention was signed in 1971 at Ramsar city in Iran. For your exam purpose, for prelims, all you need to remember are few facts like which was the oldest site in India. So the oldest Ramsar sites are Chilika Lake in Odisha and Keoladeo National Park in Rajasthan. Smallest wetland is Renuka in Himachal Pradesh and largest is Sundarban in West Bengal. Recently 5 sites were added. Earlier there were 37, now there are 42 Ramsar sites. So which are those 5 new sites? These are Kabartal in Bihar, Sokar in Ladakh, Lonar Lake in Maharashtra, Sur Sarovar in UP and Asan in Uttarakhand. Some Ramsar sites are under extreme or serious threat. Such Ramsar sites, India historically had 3, now India has only 2. The first one was Keoladeo National Park in 1990. Then in 1993, Loktak Lake and Chilika Lake were added. Chilika Lake was removed in 2002. So right now India has 2 among the 42. There are 2 Ramsar sites which are in the Montreux record, that is they are under serious threat. Those are Keoladeo National Park in Rajasthan and Loktak Lake in Manipur. In which states there are no Ramsar sites? It is very easy to learn. See, there is no Ramsar site in Haryana because there is too much of agriculture. And go by car from Jharkhand to Goa. Okay, so Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Karnataka and Goa. Don't go to Maharashtra because we have already learned that Lonar Lake has been announced to be a Ramsar site in Maharashtra. Okay, and in Northeast India, among the 8 Northeast states, there are 3 Ramsar sites only in 3 states, which are in Tripura we have Rudra Sagar, Rudra Sagar Lake. In Manipur we have Loktak Lake. In Assam, Deepor Beel. Okay, so these 3 Ramsar sites are in Northeast. Learn them. Other than them, there are no Ramsar sites in the Northeast of India. Also here I have arranged them state wise. So in case you wish to learn them, then it will be easy for you. Like in Kerala, these are 3 Ramsar sites. Like this you can learn. 2018 question. Which of these is an artificial lake? Suppose you don't know the answer. Then think like this. Why will anyone create artificial lake? Maybe because the land is flat and there is no place to store water. To store water, people will create some artificial lake. Now in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, there are huge mountains. In huge mountains, there is no flat land. People already will have many depressions in the land where automatically, naturally, water would be seeping from the mountains, right? So people will never make, you can assume like this, okay? In exam, you have to think like this. So you can think that there won't be any artificial lake in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. Then you can take a guess between Andhra and Tamil Nadu. Okay, if you want, you can take a guess, otherwise you can leave the question. I would suggest always take a risk. Okay. Sukna Lake. Sukna Lake was in news because on orders of Chandigarh High Court, the government declared Sukna Lake to be a wetland, not a Ramsar site. Okay, government declared it to be a wetland. Why? Because there were too many encroachments. Sukna Lake was becoming dirty. It was dying slowly. So High Court ordered it to be notified as a wetland. So it is also man-made lake made in 1958. It is in Chandigarh. 2010 question. India is a party to Ramsar Convention. What does that mean? See, I've already explained. When India is a party to Ramsar Convention, it means that we will use the Ramsar sites as wise use, under wise use. What is the meaning of wise use? Wise use means sustainable use. That is, use anything in such a way that you are able to use it without damaging that thing. Okay, you are using groundwater, then extract only that much groundwater as much is being recharged. If you extract more than as is being recharged, then you are exploiting it. That is not sustainable use. Okay, so Ramsar Convention calls for wise use of wetlands. See the options. First option says keep the sites inaccessible. No, we have to use them. Second, use them only for tourism. No, we need water. We can extract the water, right? Not just for tourism. Third says use for future generation. No, it is saying that you first don't use them and use them only, keep them secured for the future generations. No, wise use Ramsar Convention means today you can use them, but use them without damaging them, right? So fourth option is correct. 2019 question. Under Ramsar Convention, it is mandatory on the government of India to protect and conserve all the wetlands in the territory of India. Why? Like I told you, wetlands are many. Okay, even your paddy field is a wetland. How can government protect all the wetlands of India? Practically not possible. Maybe if it says that it is binding on the government of India to protect Ramsar sites in India, then you could have thought that maybe there is such some provision like that, right? So the question is not talking about the Ramsar site. It is confusing. UPSC is trying to confuse you between Ramsar site and wetland site, right? So please read the questions carefully. Second statement says that in 2010 government framed some rules on the wetland, and it says that government framed these rules on the basis of recommendation of Ramsar Convention. Suppose you don't know anything about them, but think like this. You are giving the examination in the year 2019. In the examination hall you think that in 1972 Ramsar Convention happened, it would have given some recommendation, and now in 2010 government is following those recommendations and making the rules. Seems like too far-fetched, right? So you will say no, 2 is wrong. 1 was wrong, 2 is wrong. Then 3 must be correct. Then you will read the third option, that these rules also cover the drainage area and the catchment region. Yes, that's right. Suppose this is a wetland, okay, and the catchment region, the drainage region, suppose it is not covered by the rules, then what will happen? Huge buildings will come out here, people will create roads, so where will the water go in? How will the water go in? How do wetlands recharge? Any body of water recharges when there is drainage from the surrounding areas. If you are concretizing everything, then this lake will die automatically. So to protect a lake, to protect a wetland, protecting its surroundings is essential. So third option is correct, that the rules must be including the surrounding areas as well. Now there are different types of wetlands. If in a wetland there are mostly herbs or small grasses, then you call it marshland. If in the wetland there are mostly trees, then you call it as a swamp. If in the wetland there are wood which are drowned in this water and they are partially decomposed, that means lots of carbon is stored beneath this land and this water, then that is a peat land. That is a peatland. So peatlands cover only 3% of the global land, but they have the most carbon store. Okay, they are the largest natural terrestrial carbon store. So where are peatlands found? most of the peatlands are found near the Arctic region on the land. Okay, and some peatlands are also found in the Congo, in the tropical region. And the drained peatlands release lots of greenhouse gases because here the wood is only partially decomposed. 2016 there was a global peatlands initiative at COP22 in Marrakesh. In 2018, Brazzaville Declaration on Peatlands was signed by Congo and Indonesia. Congo and Indonesia. This is Congo, this is Indonesia. Why will they sign? See, Congo has peatlands which are world's biggest peatlands in the tropical region. Okay, now they are degrading, and Indonesia has some expertise on how to maintain the peatlands. So Indonesia will be helping Congo in preventing the degradation of Congo's peatlands, which are world's largest tropical peatlands. In 2019, UNEP at its 4th assembly passed the global resolution on peatlands. Two wetlands that are quite in news: Lonar Lake in Maharashtra. It is the largest crater. It was formed by a strike of a meteorite in the basaltic rock. Okay, all the rock of that region is made of basalt. Okay, it was formed around 50,000 years ago. There is water in this lake. A few months ago, I think last year, there was too much haloarchaea. Haloarchaea is a type of archaea. Okay, too much of haloarchaea caused this water to turn pink. Okay, now it is also a National Geological Heritage monument site. Like we have archaeological mountains, similarly we also have geological heritage monuments. Okay, who recognizes them? They are declared by the Geological Survey of India. Currently India has 34 geological heritage monuments. Manipur's Loktak Lake is famous for Phumdis. What are Phumdis? You can see this photo. Okay, so these are floating islands, floating vegetation. This is whole lake. In the lake, these vegetations are floating. Okay, and in one of these vegetation, it is quite big. Okay, in one of these big vegetations, there is a national park, Kebul Lamjau National Park, which is the only floating national park in the world. Lichens. So this is a photo of lichen. Okay, now lichen, it may seem that it is a plant, but it is not a plant. It is actually algae and fungi, like UPSC asked in 2014. It is a symbiotic relation between algae and fungi. Fungi gives minerals, water and shelter to algae. Algae prepares the food and gives to fungi. Okay, they both are helping each other. So this photo shows not a plant, it shows algae and fungi. Where do they grow? Where do they make this symbiotic relationship? Anywhere, like on rocks also, right? On rocks, on any tree, when they're on tree, they act like a epiphyte. What is epiphyte? Suppose this is a tree. From tree, some branches will come out. So this branch is a part of tree. But sometimes what happens, that an external plant will come and stick to the stem of the tree. Now this external plant, when it will stick here, it will not take away the energy or the proteins or minerals from the tree. No, it will, it will take its nutrients from the air, moisture from the air or from other sources. It is not dependent on the tree for this. It is not a parasite. So such a thing is called as an epiphyte. Okay, now this photo shows a epiphyte. This is not a lichen. Okay, lichen is this, lichen is this. This is not a lichen. This photo I am using just to explain what are epiphytes. Lichens grow very slowly. They can live for centuries. They indicate the air quality. For example, you will rarely see such lichens in cities, because in cities there is sulfur dioxide pollution due to vehicles. Okay, India's first lichen park is being made in Uttarakhand. So this is environment's third class, and we have discussed page numbers 24, 25, 26 and 27. Okay, rest of the pages till page number 36 of this third class you can study by yourself. Please go to this website allinclusiveies.com/prelims2021. This link is also given in the description box. Click over there, go to this website and download this PDF. Okay, rest of the pages you can read yourself. In case you want to see the explanation of these pages also, then you will have to make a small payment for that. So basically we are running our paid courses in which first few pages of all the classes are given for free on YouTube, and rest of the pages, their explanation is given as a part of paid course. See, the whole of the PDF, be it paid, be it free, whole of the PDF is totally free. Anyone can download the PDFs. We are talking about only the video. So the video, the explanation of the PDFs is, some portion is free and some portion is paid. Okay, some portion is paid. The explanation of the video, some portion is paid. For example, like I said, for environment, if you want to purchase, then for environment, if you make a payment of rupees 200 for Hindi videos or 250 for English videos, then all these paid classes of environment current affairs for prelims 2021 that you will get. This is not per video. If you pay once 250, then you will get all the videos of environment current affairs for prelims 2021. How to join this? Just go to allinclusiveies.com/paid courses and you will get all the details. For example, if you are using Android mobile, first of all you choose where do you want to see the videos. You want to see the videos on your mobile phone or on laptop. Only one place you can see. Okay, suppose you're using Android mobile phone, open the Play Store, search for an app, All Inclusive IAS. Download this app. If you are using Apple iPhone or iPad, install the app Class Plus. Enter the organization code as MXLDF. Then you will get this app. In this app, register yourself. After registering, at the bottom of the screen, there will be store. Open the store. In the store, make the payment for the course you want to purchase. Then after making the payment, again open the store, and then you will be able to see the paid course. If you want to see the videos on laptop, then the link for that is given in the description box. Okay, open that, make the payment, register yourself, make the payment, okay, and you will get access there only. Access you will get instantaneously. Whenever you make the payment, within 2-3 minutes you will get the access. If you have any issues, you can send a mail to inquiry@allinclusiveies.com. Please note again that on whichever platform you make the payment, you will be able to see the video only on that platform. Suppose you make a payment on the mobile app, then you will be able to see the videos only on the mobile app. You will not be able to see the videos on the laptop. Okay, and I'm repeating again, PDF is totally free. If you don't want to join the course, you can always download the full PDF totally free from the website. Whenever next video comes, if you want the notification, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon.